we have a quick slide here that I would like to show you. And so what is React? React is a popular JavaScript library used for building user interfaces, particularly for single-page applications where real-time updates are crucial. There are like other third-party libraries that you can use to build not a single page, but like an effect that creates a multiple page, like for example, an admin page, a landing page, an about page, etc. There are libraries that help you with that. It is developed by Meta, as known as Facebook, and it allows developers to create large web applications that can update and render efficiently in response to data changes. React is component-based, meaning the UI is broken down into reusable components, each encapsulating its own structure, logic, and behavior. This modularity makes it easier to manage and scale complex applications. Pretty much that was the definition of the React in a nutshell. So there are different concepts in React that you should know, and we are going to be mentioning two basic React concept here today. And one of them is prop. And a prop is a read-only feature. It's immutable. Once set, their values cannot be changed by the component that receives them. It can be passed from parent to child. I'll show you an example about this as well. You'll see what is a parent, what is a child component. And props are used to pass data and event handlers from a parent component to a child component. Used for communication, props are typically used to allow components to communicate with each other. They help a parent component control the behavior of a child component, and they are stateless. Since props are controlled by the parent component, they do not hold or manage state themselves. While you are using props inside the parent component, while you are rendering a child component, you are passing a prop to the child, and that child cannot change the value of its prop. It needs to come from the parent. So I'll explain all this to you while we are doing the example. And state is mutable. State is mutable, meaning it can change over time within the component that owns it. Managed within the component. State is managed within the component itself and can be updated using the setState function. In class components, you can directly use setState, and this use state tool can be used in functional components. There are two different ways to write React applications. Either you can write as class-based or you can write function-based functional components. But classes are like a bit older way to do it. So pretty much the React team as well moving forward to functional components. So I highly recommend you to continue with the functional components. And states are used for dynamic data. State is typically used to handle data that changes over time in response to user interactions. And local to components, there are local and global states. I'll explain them as soon as I read this. State is local to the component and cannot be accessed or modified directly by other components, although it can be passed down as props if needed. So we have local state, which is defined as use state hook. In a component, you can define a use state hook and you can manage your state within the component. But there are global state libraries, and React itself has a context API. There's another third-party library called Redux. There's Zustand and Recoil as well. Like there are a lot of different global state manager libraries. Once you need the data in a different parts of your application, let's say you have like 10 different components and you need the data, one exact data in 3 different components, and you need to access it as soon as the data is changed. So you need some kind of a global management. So local states are not gonna be cover your needs in that case. So let's write our example now. So I'm in my folder, YouTube folder right now. Before that, actually, you need to install Node.js in your system. If you don't have it, you need to install Node.js in order to run to be able to run this. You can directly download the Node.js here in the node.js.org, depending on your operating system. And after you install the Node.js, you need to run this command here. The create React tab is kind of outdated right now. It's not supported anymore, but to be able to create a basic application, I'm gonna use React. There are different tools like Vite or Next.js or some other stuff as well, but I'm not gonna use them in this video. So we can just continue with base React, create React app. You need to do npx create React app. I'm gonna call my application props-states. This is gonna be the folder name, also the application name. And I will like to use TypeScript instead of JavaScript. So I pass -- template space TypeScript flag, so it can create a project in TypeScript. Once we enter, it's gonna install dependencies, and I'll get back to you once the whole thing is installed. Now it's installed. Let's read into it. Props-states, enter and code dot, and it's gonna open the project in Visual Studio Code for me. So let's take a look what we have here by default, which comes from create React app. We have app.tsx. TSX is the extension for React components. If you are using JavaScript, it's gonna be JSX, but since we are using TypeScript right now, it's gonna be TSX. You have the entry point of your application here, index.tsx, and then you are creating a element by getting the ID of by this div right here. All your application is being created under this, inside this div, and you are creating an HTML element. Like as you can see here, you are creating a root and rendering the app here. If you are wondering what is strict mode is, leave a comment down below and I'll make a video about the strict mode as well. So like I said, we have the app.tsx here. Let's run this. To run this, you can run npm start and enter, and it's gonna open up in your default browser. By default, we have this application here. It says that you can edit source/apptsx and save to reload, learn React with Sefa Ilyas Oz, let's say, and it's gonna be, as we can see here, updated automatically. To get going with our example, I would like to start with creating a component folder or components, let's say, and also I need a utils folder. And inside this components, I would like to create a parent component .tsx. I have an extension installed here, ES7 React Native snippets. You can install this. You can just write an tsrafe. So this is gonna create a boilerplate for the component with the name that I gave here in the file. I'm gonna save, come back to this here. I'm gonna remove header section completely, and I'm gonna render the parent component inside this. So we have parent component and everything is removed, as you can see here. And besides that parent component, I would like to create two more components. I would like to call the first one first child component.tsx, tsrafe, save. Another one, second child component.tsx, tsrafe. So a parent component means that it's a wrapper of multiple or one single child component. To give you an example to that, you first child component, second child component, let's say. So the parent is the wrapper of these two, and these are child components, and these child components are siblings to each other because they are in the same level of component rendering. And here, if you notice, we have props, type props, something called props. A props, we mentioned in the slide what it is, a prop, and I would like to pass a name field which has type of string, and to access that I can destructure this props and access the name, as you can see here, and I can render this name here, but it's gonna be throwing an error because this is not an optional. If I put a question mark here, this is gonna be optional and it's gonna be all fine. But if I don't put a question mark, as you can see, TypeScript gets mad at me and it says that you asking for a prop, which is name here, but you are not passing that into this first child component. So what I need to do here is name and give a string value. I can leave it as it is since prop is defined here. It's an empty string, but usually you pass a value here. So I just pass first child. And I'm gonna do the same thing for second child, name, string, save, and the structure here, sorry, name, and again, render this in the curly braces while calling name, and again, name, second child. Great, so we have our first child and second child rendered out. In this example, I would like to change the background color of these components. To do that, I'm gonna make a few changes in this CSS file first. So I'm gonna remove the background color from this. I'm gonna remove the color from this. I don't need that. I don't need this. And I need a child class, which is just gonna be having these 5 values. And I'm gonna pass this child class name here. I'll say child. As you can see, it changed. I'm gonna pass the same class name in the second one as well. I'm gonna say child. As you can see, it changed. And in the app.tsx, I'm gonna give this app and app header as well. Get this, and I need one more thing here, gap 10 pixels. So for this 10 pixels to work, I need to remove this div here, and I'm just gonna use fragments. Fragments are something completely logical thing. In order to render more than one component inside the function, inside a component, you need to have a wrapper on top of them. If I try to render them like this, then it's gonna throw me an error. But if I just put fragments, which are, like I said, the logical things, it understands that and renders these two components like this. You don't have to write div if you don't need to exactly. So we have our first child and second child rendered, as you can see here. So in the first child, I would like to manipulate this background color via props. So I'm gonna get another prop called bg color, and it's gonna be string. And I would like to change this background color by click of a button. So to trigger that, I need an handler. So I'll say on bg color change, and it's gonna be a void returning function. So it's gonna return nothing basically. And I'll take bg color and on bg color change, and I will put a button here, and I will say change color as the text, and on click I will call on bg color change. To apply the bg color styling, background styling, I'm gonna write an inline style. Background color is gonna be bg color. I save, it's gonna throw me an error because I didn't pass this yet. But if I give a default value to this, I pass the values to the props, and instead of writing white here, let's just pass this from here. Or if I say black, as you can see, it changes the background color, and our bg color is going to be coming from state right here. And I imported toState from React here, and I'm gonna give this state value to this prop. It doesn't have to be the same name, you can use a different name. And on bg color change, so I'll write a function here, helper functions.ts. I'm gonna export a const generate random color, and it's gonna return math.random.toString. It's gonna be string 16, and I'm gonna take substring of this by 2 to 8, and I will attach a hashtag sign so that can be a valid color value. So in this PG color change, instead of writing an inline function, which is not the best practice to follow, so I'll just do handle background change, and I will do const handle background change and pass this value. Well, first I need to import this, and I will say set bg color. So inside this set bg color, basically a function that changes this data right here, as you see. And by doing this, we are calling this function with the value this generate random color returns. If I do this and try to change this color here, as you can see, it works just fine. Every click of this button inside the first child component, this onBG color is triggered, which comes from the props, and it affects the function that we wrote here, and it sets the value with the, like I said, generate random color returning value. And to have a default value for our here, we can give an initial value by calling this generate random color inside this. And if I refresh, every time I refresh, it gets a new color value. And if I change color by clicking this, it's gonna be affected as well again. As you see, we are changing the prop value by manipulating this state inside the parent component. You cannot directly change this PG color prop within the first child component. Even if you define a use state here, it's not gonna be possible for you to change this name value that comes from parent. Let's try to apply local state to this second child component. Let's have a button element, again change color, save this, and give an inline style. Background color is gonna be the value use state bg color. This bg color is going to be local state within this second child component. It's not gonna be accessed or changed by the parent component or the sibling, which is the first child component. We are going to directly manipulate within the second child component, and to give this an initial value, I'm gonna do the same thing here what I did. I'm gonna call generate random color here and import this. If I save, as you can see, second child also has its bg color right now. And if I refresh, as you can see, every time we are refreshing, it changes automatically by generating random color here. So to trigger the second child's color change, we need onClick handler, handle bg change, let's say, const handle bg change. It's gonna be a arrow function which is gonna be just doing what we have done in the parent component. It's gonna set generate random color returning value to the bg color here, and it's gonna affect our background color value here field. So if I save and click change color, as you can see, it changes the color. So as you can probably tell now, this is a local state. It only affects the second child component, and it cannot be changed from parent component or from the first child component. But the first child component takes a bg color property which is coming from the parent, and it is managed within the parent component. So which one you need to use? Basically, as you can see, the both components are doing the same thing, just changing the background color. Having the local state is much more beneficial because, let me show you this first. So there's one Chrome extension called React Developer Tools. If you install that, open your console. So there's a profiler here. If you come to this profiler, there's a checkbox here, highlight updates when components render. So it's gonna show you what components are being re-rendered when they have a change. Yeah, let's zoom in into this a little bit. So if I change the background color of first child, I don't know if you can see, but you should be able to. In the second child also, it marks the second child component as well. You can see, I hope that you can see this. The reason for that is once you make a change to this, since you are changing state inside the parent component, and this parent component has a second child component rendered out as well, which is a sibling of this, it re-renders the whole thing because the states are effects causes re-renders because you are making a change in the UI. Like I said, we are doing the same logic, but instead of handling this whole thing in the parent component, if you handle within the local state, like we did in the second child component, let's see if it's gonna affect. Look, only the second child component is being re-rendered and highlighted by the extension. It's not affecting the first child because we are only making change inside this here. So if you have a case where you need to handle a value change by state, usually doing that within the local state, it's much more beneficial for your application, because if you imagine having like 50 components in this page, in this parent component, and making a one state change, it's going to be affecting the whole thing, and it's going to affect a re-render. It's going to cause a re-render for whole these 50 components, which is not a good performance thing to have. Yeah, this is basically the props and states in a nutshell. Hope you guys got the idea. And if you like to check this code, I will be sharing the GitHub link in the description down below. More React content is coming in your way. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next one.